Guys, I'm back to another story, but I might be talking quiet because my kids are asleep, but I wanted to first say that I tell these stories not to make things seem like they were all fun and games or like to glorify anything, but really kind of just to tell my story and hope that maybe either this will, I don't want to say scare you into not doing what I did, because, nobody could have stopped me when I was on my path. But at least, just tell my story, really. So, the story I'm going to tell today is, it's just, man. Okay, let me just start. It was from back in beginning of 2017, and a little backstory, which I'll tell it in another video, but I had from my use I had developed a bone infection called osteomyelitis, and it was in my left pelvis, and I was in the hospital for a long time for it, and so either way it ended up making me really sick and paralyzed and all of that. So this story is from after or in the middle of, because I was in the hospital and then I kept leaving and not going back and then going back and all of that, but in the middle of that. So I was out of the hospital. I should have still been in the hospital though. My infection wasn't gone, and I had learned how to walk again, and so I had ran from the hospital, which that story will probably it'll be like a 2 or 3 part story because it's just a long story. So I'll tell that soon, but this story is, so Eric and I it was late one night, and I decided that I was going to go out and in search of what we always were looking for, which was drugs and money. And so I had walked down. I got in the car with somebody and took his money and then hopped out, and then I was running down the street, but it was going towards the busier street, which the busier street was Pacific Avenue, and I was going down a cross street of that, and right there on that corner was where I needed to go to get the drugs that we needed. So I went in to the hotel, I went into the hotel room, got what I needed, and I walked out. And when I walked out of the hotel room, right when I walked out of the hotel room, I saw the police pass in front of me. And I was just like, okay, but they weren't like, they were just passing by, but still, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I just bought drugs, and so they pass in front of me, and so I'm like, okay, so I start walking back home, toward back where we were staying at that time, and I have my eyes on the cops, but I can only see so far ahead, and I was going the way that they were going, but they were driving obviously, so they were way further ahead of me. So I keep walking, and I noticed they pulled into the McDonald's that was right there, but I was like, I'm not doing anything at this point, I'm just walking home. But I see them turn into McDonald's, so when I see them turn into the McDonald's, I, put the drugs somewhere. And, not like the best hiding spot, it's just the typical spot, which is in your bra when you're a girl. So, anyway, so I do that, and then I cross the street, but I'm so like scared and like I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing. And it's 3 o'clock in the morning, so there's like no cars around really. There's the McDonald's right there that's busy, but I mean not busy, it's like has the normal drive-through traffic at 3 o'clock in the morning, but I crossed the street, like I'm gonna go into the McDonald's. And when I crossed that street, the police officer had pulled into that parking lot, and right when I crossed the street, he like speeds up on me, puts his lights on, and hops out. And I'm like, oh my god, oh my god. Like, I don't know if, because, you know, if we go back to how I got the money, I didn't know that guy had followed me after I had hopped out of his car. He had followed me, he yelled he was going to call the police, and I told him, you know, F off, like, you're not calling the police. So I didn't know why the cop was stopping me. Like, why did he turn his lights on? And he, like, gets out of the car, and he's like, what's your name? And I'm like, why are you asking me my name? Because also, by the way, I had warrants. Not felony warrants, like, I don't, but I had warrants, misdemeanor warrants. And so I didn't want to tell him my name, right? But he's asking me my name, and I'm like, why are you asking me my name? Like, what did I, you can't just ask me my name. Like, I didn't break the law, so what's the deal? And he's like, you did. You just crossed, and you weren't at a crosswalk. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, we just saw you. You just jaywalked. And I'm like, oh my god. Because he was right. Like, I did. I jaywalked. So now it's shifted. Like, it doesn't really matter if the police ask your name, even though you're legally, you don't have to give them your name. They're going to figure out a way for you to have to give you your name, or to give them your name, you know. So I'm just like, man, you know, like, are you guys serious? Jaywalking, like, I'm just trying to get home, like, you know. And they're like, what were you doing at that hotel? And I'm like, I'm just leaving. I'm just trying to go home. Like, can you guys just let me go home? And they weren't hearing it. So finally I give them my name. But before, I've had plenty of run-ins with the police. So I've had more luck telling the police ahead of time that I have warrants that are misdemeanor warrants, because if you don't tell them, in my experience, when I wouldn't tell them ahead of time and I would just tell them my name, and then they would call on the radio, and then by the time I would have to bribe with them, they'd be like, well, no, we already called it in, and the people, you know, it's a confirmed warrant, so we have to take you. So usually I would tell the police, hey, I have a misdemeanor warrant. It's for this. It's out of this city, you know, and my name is this, and here's my birthday. So I tell them, you know, I have misdemeanor warrants. My name is this. I'm telling you, I'm just trying to be honest, you know. And they're like, well, okay, well, if that's the only thing, if that's all it is, then, you know, we won't take you. And I'm like, okay, well, that is all it is. So they run my name, and I'm like scared, because I know this process, and like, it just, you know, when you're in that situation, it's like, it just seems like it never works out. It always goes, you never get lucky, you know. So I end up standing there, and as I'm standing there and they're like running my name to confirm that those warrants that I told them were accurate, the one of the two officers is like, Kayla? And I'm like, yeah, like, I just told you my name, like, yeah, that's my name. And he's like, you used to live over there at that clean and sober house, didn't you? And I'm like, no. And I had, like, I had. And I knew exactly, when he started saying that, I was like, oh my god, I know exactly what he's about to talk about. Because I had this other run-in with them at this clean and sober house I used to live at. And it was just not a good run-in. And it was like, they tried to take me to jail, and I talked my way out of it through this loophole that I always used to this excuse that I always used to give, that I'll tell in another story, because it just was a loophole that I figured out. But so he recognized me and was like, you know, he was like, I know that's you. And he was mad because the last time he was taking me to jail, he ended up having to take me to the hospital instead, right? So he's like, you're going to jail. Because last time you got out of it, you're going to jail, and you still have the same warrants that you had last time. And I'm like, no. And then, so he puts me in cuffs, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no, right? And so then they search my purse, right? And I'm like, they search my purse and they get in the car, and then they were, they're doing their like radio talk back and forth, and they say something, yeah, we're booking one female on a felony, something, something, something. And I'm like, a felony? Felony what? Officer, what am I, officer? I have misdemeanor warrants. I don't even have any felonies. What is the felony you're booking me in on? He's like, oh, a felony possession. I'm like, possession of what? Because I know what I have. Everything I got's right here. Right here. And he's like, a felony possession. I'm like, a possession of what? And he's like, we found a Percocet in your purse. And I'm like, Percocet? Percocet? I haven't done Percocet in 10 plus years. There's no, like, miss me with that one. Like, please, right? And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. There's no way. But I knew that they're doing that because they knew I was going to give them this whole runaround about why you guys can't book me into jail and da-da-da-da-da-da, right? And so they knew that but if I had a felony, the only reason I was getting away with this is because I always had misdemeanor warrants, and it was only a misdemeanor. So I would be able to tell them that, hey, I was assaulted and I need to go to the hospital. And so they would have to, instead of taking me to jail, they'd have to take me to the hospital. And then once you get to the hospital, the police are not going to sit there and wait for you. Now, I don't recommend this. I'm not telling anybody to do this. That's not why I'm telling this story. This is just what worked for me. So, but I would tell them that I was assaulted. And obviously, I wasn't assaulted. I mean, if I'm being honest, like, I obviously have been assaulted before, but which is how I would, in my own head, justify this, like, well, I've been assaulted, so, like, but I would tell them I'd been assaulted, they needed to take me to the hospital, and before you get to jail, if you tell the police, when I was doing this, when I would tell the police, hey, this is, like, you're in cuffs on the way to jail. Officer, well, I need to tell you something before we get to the jail. You don't say before I get to the jail, but I wouldn't say before I got to the jail. I would say, officer, well, I've been assaulted and I need to go to the hospital. And, and they would say, well, how were you assaulted? And I would say, well, I don't want to talk about it with you. And I need to see a doctor, and I need to make sure everything's okay. And they would be like, and they really, at that point, they're not really supposed to ask a bunch of questions. They're supposed to just take you to the hospital. And if you're a big time, like, if they want to wait for you, they can wait for you. But in my case, they never would wait for me. So I would do this over and over and over and over with all of these different police officers. But the thing with this one is that I had already done it to this cop the last time I seen him. So I had already said the same exact thing to him. But policy is the policy, and I'll get to that at the end too. So he wasn't trying to hear it. I got in the car. They tell me they're taking me on a felony possession. So I'm like, crap, this might stick. They might actually sit and wait for me then, because if it's a felony possession, they might sit and wait for me. But I knew I didn't have that on me. They were making it up. So anyways, I'm at this point, I'm crying. He's like, you said this all to me the last time, and and then when we went back or something, and we know you just left. You didn't even stay at the hospital. And I'm like, I did. This has happened to me numerous times, and I mean, So by the time we get to downtown, we're almost to the jail. I'm like, they're not going for it, but I'm not letting up. Like, what do I got to lose, I might as well just keep arguing with this police officer and hope he'll take me to the hospital. So anyways, he takes me, they're like, listen, we're gonna take you and we're gonna sit and wait for you. And I'm like, that's fine. Go ahead and sit and wait for me. That's fine. Because I had another trick up my sleeve. So we get to the hospital, they walk me in, and I sit down and I tell them, I've been assaulted, but I don't want to talk about it. And so they're sitting there waiting for me, right? But the other thing is that I had left against medical advice from the hospital for my bone infection. And I was in the hospital for quite a while. So when I got there, and then I'm like, and also I'm having a lot of pain, you know, in my hip. And you guys can call up to Harborview because that's where I was. And so the police officers, they're just sitting there waiting, right? And I remember being so scared because I still had the drugs on me, right? And but obviously I'm a woman, they're men, they can't be in there when I'm changing and stuff. So when they had me change into the little gown that I was gonna wear, I was like, okay, well now what do I do with this, you know? And so I hid it underneath the hospital bed, right? And because I'm like, at this point, I'm like, let me just get this off of my person. Anyways, let me just get this off of me because I really don't want a possession charge. I've made it like 10 plus years doing this and I haven't gotten a felony yet, so I didn't want to get a felony. Let me find this. So, story. So they end up, you know, long story short, the doctor who comes to see me, he's like, listen, because I eventually was, I could tell the tables had turned because he got my file from Harborview and saw how serious of an infection I had in my bones, that he was like, look, we need to admit you and you need to go back up to the hospital. Like you need to go back up to the hospital and finish the treatment for this because you can die from this. Like, this is not a joke. You know, at one point they had talked about amputating my leg. Like, they were like, you know, we need to keep you. And so the police officers come in. I remember the police officers come in and they're like, they're like talking to the doctor, and the doctor is arguing with them. The doctor's like, listen, we need to keep her. We're going to admit her. She needs to go back to the hospital. Like, the hospital that I was at did not have the necessary, you know, team of doctors that I needed. The, like, infectious medicine team that I needed to treat this infection. So, the officers were, like, pissed. They were mad. They wanted to take me to jail. They were determined that I was not going to win. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, I won. You know, and the doctor's like, no, she needs to stay. And the officers were like, no, is there any way that, you know, she can can she just come when she gets out of jail? And the doctors were like, no, she needs to go now. This is life or death. Like, she needs to go. So I remember the officer went out to his car and grabbed my purse, brought my purse in, didn't say a word to me, and just opened the door and dropped my purse on the ground and walked out, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I did it, right? And so I'm like sitting there, I'm waiting, I'm like so nervous. So at this point I had my purse back, so I had my phone, so I was able to call Eric and be like, babe, I got arrested, because it had been hours at this point. Babe, I got arrested. I'm at the hospital right now. I'm about to leave. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, what's going on? And I'm like, I'll tell you when I get home, but I'm about to leave. I'm about to make it home. I'm just going to hitchhike home, and I'll be there soon. And so the doctor comes in, and I'm like, I'm already packing my stuff up. I'm putting my clothes on. The doctor's like, what's going on? I'm like, I'm leaving. I'm sorry. I'll go back up to the hospital, but I need to get home right now. And he's like, no, like, we just fought. Like, and I, even in my youth, like, I even felt guilty then because I knew he was just a good doctor. He was a good doctor. He fought for me. Even when I wasn't willing to fight for myself, he fought for me. And, you know, there's a lot of times that I tell stories like this, and I just wish that I could go back and find these people who had huge parts in my life today. Like, just that little thing, because anyways, just to go back and be able to say thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in me. Because, you know, he could have just been like, no, take this drug addict to jail, and she can go to the hospital when she gets out, but anyway, so he's trying to convince me. He calls his nurses in to try and convince me, and I'm like, listen, I'm telling you, there's nothing that you guys can say. I'm leaving. Like, I'll go back to the hospital eventually, but I'm not going right now. And they're like, they were trying everything. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. So I end up putting all my clothes on and leaving, right? And I walk out the door, and at this point the sun's up, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, it was just like such a breath of fresh air. Like, I got away again, So I'm like walking through the parking lot, and at this point the police have left, so I put the drugs I had in my coat pocket, right? And I'm walking out, and I see a truck, and it's this guy driving, and he's driving kind of slow, and I'm like, I flag him down. I go up to his window. I'm like, hey, I just got stuck here. Is there any way that I could get a ride home or a ride close to the bus? Or he was like, sure, hop in. So I go around the front of his truck, and as I'm opening up his passenger door, I look over, and I see that cop car coming as fast as he can towards me. I will never forget it. I was like, no. No. So the cops hop out, and they're like, we knew you were going to leave. We knew you weren't going to stay. We knew it. We knew it. And they were like, I'm like, no, I'm going to go back. I swear I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back. And they're like, oh, well, if you left against medical advice, then we have everything we need to take you to jail. So, and I'm like, I don't, and I'm trying, like, I don't remember what I tried to tell them that I was doing out there, but whatever it was, there was two of the officers, and one of them was like, okay, I'll go in and ask if you left against medical advice. And the other officer is like, put your hands behind your back. And I'm like, I'm just so stressed out. Can you please, I promise, I'm not going to do anything. Can you please I'll just sit down. Let me just sit down. And he lets me get in the back of his car. As I'm telling this, I'm like, is this incriminating? This is, no. Anyways, he lets me get in his car without cuffs on. Because I was like, if he puts me in cuffs, I'm screwed because I have this in my pocket. You know what I mean? Like, now I'm really screwed because it's not in my bra. It's in my pocket. And now I really will have a felony. So he lets me get in his car without putting the cuffs on. So then I was like, okay. So I'm talking. I'm holding a conversation with him. I'm crying again. I'm trying to tell him my life story and why he shouldn't take me to jail. But in the meantime, at this point, I'm pretty certain that I'm going to jail. Pretty sure. Pretty sure I've exhausted all avenues at this point. So I find a more secure hiding spot. If you know, you know. So I find a better hiding spot. And sure enough, the officer comes back, and he's got paperwork in his hand, and he's like, let's go. And I'm like, no, we're going. And yeah, they took me to jail. And when I got to the jail, man, I got to the jail, I was just kicking myself, like, man, there's so many, I could have either stayed and gone to the hospital, or I could have gone out the back door, maybe, or, there was so many, but the good thing is that if it's valid, it's valid. Like, realistically, I really did need to be in the hospital, so when I got there and I had that paperwork that said I needed to go, or that I should have been in the hospital, the jail technically wasn't supposed to even book me in. So I was in jail, and I was in there for that whole day. And then the next day they called me. They said, Kayla, roll up, or Lewis, roll up. And I was like, what am I rolling up for? And yeah, an officer was out there, and they went and dropped me off at a different hospital and just dropped me off that time. And You know, they were like, we can't house you because you have a serious infection and we can't treat you here. And I was supposed to go to the hospital that day too, and of course, I didn't. I went in the bathroom and I sat there for like a good hour because I was scared they were gonna come back again, but they didn't. And it wasn't like that either with that time. It was like the jail couldn't house me at that point. They just dropped me off. And so yeah, but yeah. So that's the story that I have. And there's so many others, like, telling this story now. I'm like, oh, and then it leads into this, and then it leads into that. But I'm gonna, I have some stuff written down. I don't know if it's best to go in chronological order, because honestly, it's hard to remember chronological order of everything. But, yeah, I hope this story was entertaining, or, what's the word I want? Not entertaining, but maybe, you know, show, like, brings awareness, or maybe no, here's the word. I hope somebody can relate to this story, and, you know, feel me on this one, because, I know there's plenty of people out here either going through it or have gone through it. And sometimes for me, when I hear stories, like I hear on Nicole's channel on Real Talk Recovery, when I hear her stories, it makes me feel good that I'm not alone. Like, I'm not the only crazy one out here. I'm not the only one that's been through this and been able to, you know, tell a story from the other side, you know. And yeah, I'm super grateful, super blessed. I'm so excited to be able to, I'll have 2 years clean on Sunday, December 1st. And I'm just so excited about it. It's like, you know, 1 year was super cool for me, and, you know, every day clean is a blessing. And every day clean is something to be excited for. And I tell people that all the time who have, you know, a week clean or a month clean. Everything is huge, you know. 1 day clean is a big deal. But for me, this, you know, this 2 year, if I make it to Sunday, 2 years, it's just huge for me. I've never made it this long, and 1 year was really exciting, but 2 years has been the most growth and the most change in life, you know. Like, I have my kids back full time. I live on my own. Like, I'm not in like a structured, safe environment, you know, and it's just been great, you know. Recovery is possible. Recovery is worth it. You're worth it. You know, it's great. It's great. I really, and I used to think people were lying when they said, oh, life is so good, but it really is. And I don't know who I was telling the other day, but sometimes feelings just need to be felt, you know. Like, I used to get high for every single feeling. Like, I used to get high if I was happy, sad, bored, lonely, heartbroken, excited. All of that was a reason or an excuse to get high. And now it's like feeling these feelings, like, it just, every time you go through it, everything gets easier. So, I don't know, I just hope that maybe by hearing these crazy stories that I've been through, and then being able to see who I am today, it shows that it's possible. Because even some people, like, that I know now who only know me in recovery almost wouldn't probably believe the craziness that I've been through, because it's a lot, and I'm a totally different person today. Not only, you know, one day when I figure out this editing thing, I'll show you guys some pictures, some old pictures, not pictures that I'm proud of, but they're old pictures of me and like what I used to look like. And, you know, that's a whole nother topic. I'm sure I'll do a video on that, like weight gain in recovery, because that's a hard one. But, you know, just being able to accept me for me, and, you know, I hope everybody can feel the way I feel now, you know. And I'm not talking about, you know, on my best day or on my worst day. I'm just talking about all of it, you know, feeling these feelings, you know. So anyways, that's just a little ramble at the end, but I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give me feedback if there's anything you want to hear or don't want to hear, or liked or didn't like. I would love the feedback. And yeah, if you could like the video, subscribe if you're not subscribed. Yeah, and I will see you next time. Bye.